So in this video here, we're going to talk about workflows with V7 Labs. So this is actually like a really cool tool that you can use. I gave an introduction to it in the last video. So I'm going to make this series of videos how we can actually like use V7, because this is a really great and cool annotation tool, both for doing like object detection, instant segmentation, like semantic segmentation, and all those different kind of things. It's really easy to get started with, because you just have to upload your data set. You can like label your data set, and then you can create these workflows. You can even train your model, so you can do like auto labeling. You can have some review processes. You can assign different kind of like annotations to different team members. So this is really cool. We're going to make this series of videos with V7, where we're just going to cover like all of the cool aspects and elements of V7 and how we can actually like use it. So in this video here, we're going to talk about workflows, how we can set that up. Here we can just go into our workflow, so we can create a new workflow. So first of all, I'm going to show you how we can create this basic, really easy like workflow. So basically you will just upload your data set, then you can connect your data set to it. So over here to the left, we would like have the available data set. You can also create a new one down at the bottom. But basically here, the idea behind the workflows is that you can set up these blocks, and then you can basically just pass the outputs from these blocks to an input to another block. So we actually like have this flow going from left to right. So after you're connecting your data set over here to the right, then you can basically take your data set into an annotation block. Then we actually like need to do annotation. If you have like several team members, or you want to do an annotation with your friends or colleagues, you can actually like assign members to that as well. So if you just hit this block here, you can actually like assign labeling jobs to different kind of like users over to the right. After an annotation here is done, we can just send that for review. So after you've annotated your images, we will send it into the review process. Either they will be accepted or they will be rejected. We can also assign different kind of like team members for this process. If they're accepted, we will just throw them up to the complete state, and then we can use those to actually like train our model. So the best annotations would actually like be in this complete state, so we can get as good model as possible. If they are rejected, if the images and the annotations are rejected here in the view process, we will just feed them back here again to the annotation. So this is the simplest workflow that we can have here in V7. And this is usually like the workflow that we're doing if we're just creating some small projects that we want to create some AI and deep learning models. And then you can basically like, if you want to add more complexity or like add more blocks over here to the right to your workflow, then you can do that. So if you have some larger projects, it might actually like be beneficial to create like more review processes, or like more review stages, different kind of like annotation stages, maybe have like different team members for the different stages as well. So over here to the right, we can also add like, for example, a model if you want to do active learning on your data set. So basically, and also your model. So basically you can like label, if you have your whole data set, you can label like maybe like 20-30% of your data set. You can throw them into the review process, and then you can accept them. You can have the complete data set over here to the right. Then you will train a model on that completed data set where you have all the annotations. Then you can actually like connect the model here to the workflow, and then you can use that model to do annotation on the images going forward. So let's say you have 30% annotated already. Then you just train a model, add the model here to your workflow, and then you can do annotation or like automatically labeling with that model, and then you will actually like speed up the annotation process. So here over here to the right, we can actually like choose this model block. So maybe let's do that. So here we can just do that. Let's say that we have already like annotated 30% of our images, and we have now trained our data set. Then we can actually like just go up here and delete it. So after from our new data set, so the images that are not labeled yet, we will just throw those into our AI model. Then we can connect the model to it, and the output from our model will go into some kind of like review stage. So let's say that we just put them up here to the review stage. If they get accepted, again, if they get accepted in the review process here, they will just go to the complete data set. If they get rejected, we just throw them back here for manual annotation. So this is actually like a pretty nice workflow as well. After you have generated like a small model that can then do predictions on your data set, then you will actually like eliminate a lot of manual labeling, and that can help you a lot. It can save you time and also save you money in the end. At least if you have a really large data set that you need to annotate, this will be a really good workflow to use. It will save you a ton of time, and it is not really fun to annotate your images. You just want to have it done. You want to play around with the deep learning and AI models. That is the fun part. So this is also a pretty good workflow. Still, it's really simple. Then you can go over here to the right and then just connect a model to it. You will have some default models in your own V7 where you can just use some of the pre-trained models that there is, but you can also like integrate another like external model, you can just connect to that as well. They have a guide for that as well. We're probably going to cover that in another video throughout this series of videos with V7, because again, I'm just going to create the series to show you guys the capabilities and all the advantages there is when we're actually using V7 to do all our annotation, model training, our workflow, and so on. So over here to the right, we're just going to connect a model to it. I'm just going to choose one of them. So here we just have one, and we're just going to connect our model. Then we have our model running here. We just feed the images from our dataset through the model. They go into the review process. If they get accepted, if the annotations is actually like good enough from our AI model, we just throw them into our dataset. Then we haven't done any manual labeling at all. And then you just keep repeating that process. Maybe after you label like 70% of your dataset, 50% of your dataset, then you'll just like retrain your model, throw the model in here, connect it again, and then you just keep on doing the same workflow here over and over again. The good thing again here, you can just add like more review processes. You can also like add webhooks, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But basically here you can just have multiple stages. You can also have like more review processes. If you also have like maybe it could also be a good idea if you have a larger project to have one more review process. So here you maybe have like one team that is just like taking a quick look at the annotations, and if they're accepted, they just go into a new review process. If they're rejected, they just go back to the annotation again. If they're then reviewed here by another team, so this could be maybe like some kind of like manager. So you can just like change the name up here at the top. Then you can just assign that. So I'm just going to assign that manager as me. So we can basically just choose one of the team members, but I'll just assign the manager for myself. And then if I accept the images, then we can actually go in here and add the complete one as well at the top. So if they're accepted by me, then they will go into the dataset. And if they're rejected by me, they can maybe like maybe go back to the annotation steps again. So we can actually like do annotations on the rejected images again, or we can actually just archive them if they're not good enough. So if they're rejected by me, they're not good enough, the labels are not good enough, maybe the images, maybe there's something wrong with the images, but then they will be archived. Or else if they're good enough, if I say these images are good from our model, then they just go into the complete one here, they go into the final dataset, and then we can retrain our model, do the whole workflow over again. So then when we have created our workflow, we can basically just save it and apply, and then you will just do this workflow here over and over again. You can just connect your data set, like upload new images to your data set, go through the whole process within your workflow again. So now I want to show you like a bit more complex workflow. Maybe if you have like a bit more details in images, you want to have like a really large like workflow. Maybe you have like a large organization, stuff like that, and you just want to make sure that your annotations are perfect for your model, because again, the better annotations you have, the better your model will learn. So here we can go in and see this workflow here. It's a bit more complicated, but they also use a dataset. So first of all, we have our dataset connected to our workflow here, or to our dataset block. And then we're basically just having an AI classification model here that just predicts if this is an invoice or a receipt. And then we can basically, after we have done that, we are classified it. If we actually like have, for example, like an invoice, then we just know this is an invoice. Then we throw it into our AI model, which will be a text scanner. So we basically just scan the text that we have in our invoice. And then after that, we have actually like done the automatically like annotations. So this will come, like the text scanner here will come for all you guys. So you can basically just directly disconnect that model to your workflow, and then it will do the text scanning for you in your own application. So this is really cool. It can be used for a lot of different kind of things. You guys should definitely like play around with it. It's really cool. And I'm just really mind blown that we can actually just set up these blocks here in the workflows, and then it will just work. We can just set up like workflows for like huge organizations, and then they will just follow this process here. You can add review steps for like different kind of like levels in your organization and stuff like that. So it's really nice. Definitely use it. I find it very useful for myself at least. So here we can basically just, after we have done the text scan from our AI model, then we will throw it into our annotation here. So here we just have model correction and annotation. So basically we just check the annotations here. We make sure that the annotation is good. If it doesn't scan some text in the image, then we can actually like manually label it as well. So first of all, here we will have the first review process. So this will be the project manager review. If the project manager here accepts the image or like the annotations, it will go up to the data science QA, quality assurance, or if they will be rejected, they go back to another quality assurance annotation, and then we have some external QA before it actually like goes up to the data science QA as well. Again, you can just assign like different team members for each of these different kind of like review stages. If they are rejected, they go back to the annotation again. If they're accepted here for the external QA, it will go up to the data science QA. So this could maybe be like some persons actually like training the models, so they should like know and they should verify that this data here that we feed into our models is actually like good enough. So if these data science guys here actually like rejects the images and annotations, it will just go to the archive, and if they accept them, they will go to complete, and then they can train the models on this completed data set. So this is a bit more advanced like workflow. This is probably like for like a bit larger organization or a team, where the other workflow that I showed you, that is basically like the workflow that I'm using here when I'm training with V7. Again, I'm using this tool here a lot because it's just really easy to get started with. You just upload your data set. You can create this really nice workflow, automatically labeling your data set and so on. So it will save you a ton of time if you're doing a lot of labeling on larger data sets. But here again, we have different kind of like review stages. So this is also good for like larger organizations. Then we can also use something called webhooks. So you can basically like hook up some different kind of like outputs here to our like a URL, and then you can actually like see the outputs from your model or like from your data set. It could also be that instead of like exporting your data set in chunks, you can actually like just divide it in after a data set had actually like been labeled, or like an image has been labeled. Then you can basically just throw that image directly to your URL and export it if you're just maybe like training your model on the go. So we could maybe like attach a webhook down here at the bottom, and then if our images are accepted, instead of throwing it into the complete data set, then we can maybe just directly throw it into our webhook, and then we can maybe like export our image directly to some other different kind of like platforms. Or if you just want to like see the annotations in like an URL, you can just throw the output of that, and then you can just visualize it. You can see how it works out while it's actually like running here in your flow. So here we can basically just set an URL here that we can actually like hook up our like data set or like an output from these code blocks here, or like these blocks here in the workflow. And then if they succeed here with the webhook, we can maybe just throw them into the complete data set here as well. And if they fail, they might actually just go back here to a data science Q&A again. And here, if they get rejected, it will just go back again. And then we just keep doing this process here over and over again. So again, the idea behind the workflow is just to set up a really simple workflow so you can get an understanding of like how are we going from having a data set, how can we do annotation on a data set, the review process, if we actually like, because the idea behind this workflow here is to get the best data set as possible for our model. Because again, the better our data set is, the better our annotations are, the better our model would actually be in the end. And then again, we can just keep on doing this active learning process where we just go from having a data set, we train a data set, or like we train like a subsample of our data set, and then we just train a model on that, deploy the model, we actually just connect the model here to our workflow, and then we just repeat that. We just throw our data set into our model as we do here, and then we just keep on doing this so we can do this auto labeling of our data set. It will save you a lot of time. Again, you can just like add review steps, throw people into them. You can assign like different types of like jobs for individual people. Some could like do some annotation, some can do a review process, and then at the end you can have like a manager actually like verifying that these images here are actually like annotated good enough for training the model. So you can have a really good model at the end for your project or application. So again, we're going to cover way more about this in future videos. I'm going to show you like how we can do it in some examples when we're actually like going to create some projects. I just want to show you like how we can actually like use these workflow both for some simple projects that I'm doing personally, and also for like larger organizations, how we can organize your whole workflow when you're working with like larger projects and larger data sets. Or maybe you have a model where data just keeps coming in. You just want to like keep iterating on your model, make it better and better over time for some really large projects. So thank you guys for watching this video here. And again, remember the subscribe button and bell notification under the video. I really like this tool here that we're using. I'm going to use it way more in the future. We're going to create a series of these videos. So I'm going to show you like how we can both do object detection, semantic segmentation, work with the workflows, how we can actually like do this auto labeling, active learning, how we can make our models and data set better. So this is really nice. I'm excited for it in the future. So I'll just see you in the next video, guys. Bye for now.